Waste on.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome
Good
to.
afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I think we can wait for 1 minute more so that people can join in. Okay, I think people are joining in, and we can probably get started. So today, what we would talk about is primarily from a marketing point of view and digital marketing point of view. How do you create what we call as an integrated campaign plans, right? And I'm stressing on the word integrated because that's what is used in the industry a lot. That's what the industry looks forward to whenever you are creating some sort of a plan. Now, while I would be giving you examples of integrated marketing plans, because I'm a part of the marketing functions and I have knowledge about that, but you can use this integrated concept even for any other business lines also. You can always have integrated financial planning, you can have integrated operations planning, you can have integrated business planning. So it's all quite similar, except that the structure is quite similar, except that you would be filling in the details in a different way, right? But the concept is that. And the reason why industry looks at integrated planning is because it gives you an end-to-end view of what you are going to do, how you are going to do, and where you are going to do, at what time you're going to do, right? So hence, the concept of integrated is something which is very important, right? I'll give you examples of two companies, where, and what I'm going to show you is real time, how the companies, they kind of, did that integrated planning, what thought went behind creating those plans, and how would you execute them, and of course, how do you make that impact in the market, right? So one example is from Accenture, the other example is from IBM, and both the examples which we will see today are, while there are a lot of similarities, but there would be a lot of differences in terms of the approach as well, right? So you will get a more holistic idea, or you will get a more holistic example of how things work behind the scenes when you are working in an organization, when you are working in a particular team, when you are working on some concepts of campaigns, etc., that needs to be launched, so that how you work with the senior leadership, or the senior leadership works with you, what is your role to play there, right? So you will get to hear all of these. And then just like last time, we'll probably have a few role plays, so that it's a little bit more interactive session as well. And of course, definitely keep your questions coming in, chat or otherwise, and we should kind of be able to kind of discuss on those topics as well, right? But I think the key message for today's session is, how do we conceptualize, plan, and execute integratedly, which will help you to think in a much more holistic manner, right? So having said that, I will take your permission to share my screen, and we will first talk about a real-time example from Accenture of 2019, when this plan was created and the campaigns were executed, right? And then we'll move on to the next examples, right? But this is something which you may want to note down, you may want to understand what concepts are there in the integrated marketing, etc., so that it helps you to think. And these are, by the way, real-time examples of what we will see, right? So I will share my screen now. All right. Okay. One second. Let me pull in this. Yes, I hope you all are able to see my screen. Right? Are you able to all see my screen?
Soumyajit.
Yes.
Soumyajit, this is Dr. Sarit Kumar, Professor. I am Bangalore.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah. So Soumyajit, do they know what IMC is all about?
No, I was going to talk to them about it.
You are explaining them what integrated marketing communication,
Yes.
because looking at the background of the student, no, let me tell you, they're not IIT IM. So just explain them a bit.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to do
then
that.
explain them this example, because the example which you have taken of Accenture is an amazing example. So I think I want them to learn this properly.
Yeah, sure.
Please explain them. Go ahead.
That was a plan. Yes. So so basically, okay. So I'll probably take a couple of more minutes to talk about what integrated marketing communication is. So as I said, at the beginning of my class, that while I'll be giving you examples of integrated marketing, but this concept can be utilized for other integrated programs as well, right?
Yeah.
So typically in a marketing and communications, what integrated marketing and comms means, that there are different aspects within marketing, right? You have an advertising, you have your traditional advertisings, you have digital, you have social, you have your PR, that is public relations and media relations, right? You have internal communications, etc., right? All these different components forms a marketing organization within an organization, right? The role of the marketing and comms teams is always to ensure that whatever your organization is doing, to take out that message in the market in the right way, in the right manner, to the right channels, right? So for example, if there is a new acquisition, or for example, if there is a new product launch, or for example, if there is a new service launch, then probably there's going to be a press release, right? So the PR team or the public relations team is going to help with this press release. For example, if there's a new innovation that's kind of come out, and any organization has come out with
Soumyajit, I'm awfully sorry, and I'm disturbing you today. Also tell them the IDA model. I think they will understand that, because they are unaware about anything about integrated marketing communication. Telling about the background of the students, Soumyajit, I'll tell you, they are zero as far as IMC is concerned. So if you tell them the IDA model also, then I think when you show the Accenture example, they will really try to relate.
So I don't have any document on
Okay.
IDA yet.
Attention, interest, desire, action.
Yeah. So I'm saying
Yeah,
that,
so
like,
that is
I
that is
don't have any
no,
presentation
no,
as
no. You
such.
need not have a slide, Soumyajit. You can talk to them. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So, okay, but before I do that, just give me one moment. Just allow me one moment to pull up something which might be relevant for you, and then I will just kind of, talk about the IDA model. Right. Okay. So typically in simple language, an IDA model means that you are basically talking about awareness, interest, desire, and action, right? And this is something which is important to keep in mind when we are looking at anything to do with marketing or sales, because the fundamental concept of this IDA model is like, you anything that you do for marketing, advertising, and sales approach methodology, it is designed to provide an insight into the customer's mind and represent the steps, right? Which will help, like, eventually take your messaging out in the market and generate leads or sales, etc., right? In simple language, what this would mean is, like, it's a hierarchy. If you think of an inverted pyramid, right? It talks about, like, how do you start creating that awareness in the market when you talk about, your organization, either it's a product or a service. How do you typically create that awareness so people would know? For example, in the last class, we remember we were talking about kionics, and one of the centers actually mentioned or asked the question, how do we create awareness in, let's say, for example, in Gulbarga, or in, like, or in any other district, right? So the questions that, which we were talking about in last class, where we discussed the examples that what could be the different ways in which we create like an awareness through our messages or our communication, right? That's the awareness part of it. Then once you create that awareness, there is an interest that generates amongst the audiences, right? So if you keep on seeing a certain message or an advertising, or on different media, it could be a television, it could be a social media, it could be like, newspaper, etc., you tend to there's an interest that generates within you. So where you realize that, okay, if I'm seeing this, why don't I go and find out more? What is it all about? Do I think like this product or service is good enough, right? So that interest is generated. And then if that interest is generated, the next would be, like, your desire to actually consume or actually buy or purchase or engage with, right? So for example, if you and again, I'll take the example of, like, let's say, for example, students who wants to maybe probably enroll for some courses, right? They see an advertisement, they understand about it, there's an interest that generates, and then there's a desire to take the next steps. What would be the next steps? Probably they would want to find out more. What is the course about? What is the course fee? What is the course structure? Where can I get job placements? All those different desires and interests, right? And then the action is the final step, wherein you would typically, like, actually take the action to ensure that, you're doing what you're supposed to do. So for example, if I want to enroll, then I would probably go and pay the fees, and that's my action. If I want to buy some sort of a shopping, if I see some shopping ads, or like, I want to buy something, then that's my action, right? So this is what is the IDA model, as sir mentioned, like, your awareness, interest, desire, and action, right? If this is the basic, like, principle of, like, all our human beings, like, who we interact with whenever we see certain ads, and when we see certain messages, when we see certain commercials, etc., how do you then capture that as a part of your integrated marketing communications, right? While the name may sound very fancy, but let me tell you, like, I'll in my session, I'll break it down into very simpler way, so that you are able to understand. All you need to understand is, typically in a marketing organization, how people work in an integrated manner. I think that's the key takeaway, right? So let me then share my screen again, and we'll talk about how the example from Accenture, which I was talking about, was relevant when they came up with this in 2019 as a part of their marketing organization, right? So if you see here, it is mentioned as advanced technology centers in India. And the reason why I chose this example is because a lot of the subjects, a lot of the streams that you eventually would study is about a lot of technology related topics, right? So it is also important for you to understand, how typically you would be marketing those technology, and how you would understand, how to talk about those technologies, and hence through marketing, how Accenture was utilizing this, right? And this is a plan. So when you create first a plan, there are some certain building blocks and certain business priorities, right? Anything that you do from a business point of view, there's got to be some sort of a priority that the business is supposed to look at. In this case, the business priorities were three: sales, revenue, and profitability, right? How do you typically would be generating the sales? By being innovative. How do you typically would be getting the revenue? By originating those conversations with the users who would be able, or the clients would be able to engage with you. Again, think of the IDA model. There is a desire and an interest, right? And then how would that originate, right? And then automate is the scale up. Typically once you have kind of signed a deal with the organization, then how would you typically go about it, right? These were the business priorities. How would you achieve these business priorities? What were the products and services that Accenture was trying to leverage upon? Was these different building blocks that you would see here on the right hand side, correct? Intelligent platform services, then artificial intelligence, data, blockchain, security, certain domestic businesses and certain talent, because ultimately you need the talent to kind of do the work as well, right? But what is important for you to understand is, because it is an entire technology led organization, you will see that the conversations were more around how would you use, let's say for example, an artificial intelligence or a security, or how would you use certain platforms and tools which would be helping the clients, right? And then if these were the business objectives, how typically marketing and communications would be ensuring that you are able to go ahead and fulfill this, right? So in any marketing communications, what is critical for you to understand is there is going to be some business priorities. There's going to be some building blocks which is going to help you reach to those business priorities, and then marketing supports those business priorities through certain actions. What were those actions in this particular case? It was reinforcing the positions of advanced technology centers. Accenture Advanced Technology Center is a business unit which is highly focused on delivering innovative solutions, right? So how do you typically reinforce the position saying that we are the best, or we are able to deliver the best, right? Second is strengthening the position as a leader in automation. Now you would hear a lot of this term automation, AI, ML, right? These are all nothing but the different tools and different technologies which is right now very prominent in the industry, right? So how would you literally strengthen the position as a leader in automation? So which means any client or anybody in the industry who wants to look for a solution in automation, they should come to Accenture. So how would you do that through your marketing, right? So that was the next part. Third was strengthening a position as a leader in innovation. So how innovative you are, because technology is evolving. Technology is not something which is stagnant, right? We all need to constantly keep innovating. We all need to constantly staying up to date, right? The technologies, the people who work, etc. So how do we strengthen our position as a leader in innovation? So how do we say to the industry that yes, we are the leaders and we are the ones who are innovating? So how can marketing deliver that, right? Differentiate with the different platforms. Now, there are different competitors in the industry. A lot of the competitors would be selling something similar. So how do you, through your marketing and communications and the different channels, you are able to differentiate between Accenture's offerings and the others, right? And of course, like, the employer of choice, because obviously, if you don't have the talent, like, then how would you typically deliver, right? This is also important for you to understand, because if you need to tomorrow work in certain organizations like an Accenture or an IBM or any other such technology organizations, you need to understand the core concepts of, like, what these organizations are all about. What technologies are they wanting to focus on? Where do they want to be the leader, right? And then like, when you get into the organization, you get a chance to also, like, be a part of their training, coaching, the different like, mentorship programs. And that's what we say, like, how do you hire, develop, and retain the diverse teams, right? That's what it means by that, right? So this is how, what the marketing goals were. How did we go about achieving the same, right? So given the marketing goals, there were some big bets, right? What were those big bets? Typically, like, we saw in the last slide, we talked about reinforcing positioning, leader in innovation, leader in automation, etc. Now, if you see, what would you do, like, to activate that? While those are the thoughts, but what are the few things that, you would do to activate? So Communication 360, for example, was a program where it was more like an internal television. Like, in television, you see different series, right? You see a Netflix, or you see an Amazon, and you see different series. This was an internal like, program where, for the internal audiences, you were able to see a weekly series on certain topics and themes. It was basically talking about maybe some innovation. It was maybe talking about some sort of a project. It was maybe talking about some sort of a like, innovation led exercise, etc., but communicating to the audiences, 4 lakhs plus audiences, right? So that was the Communication 360. So constantly reinforcing the positioning that, like, we are the leaders, correct? Then you had like, different events. For example, Accenture Innovation Week, right? So, so marketing is not only about digital, like, it's also about, like, like, a lot of other and channels as well. And that's why we call it integrated, because if you see that all these different components we are talking about has different aspects of marketing, right? While digital and media relations covers end-to-end and touch point, but you have a event like an Accenture Innovation Week, where there were some events that was kind of, like, done. Then you have a cross industry like, study, which was kind of a report that was developed, and then there was external events which the people participated and kind of talked about, right? Similarly, like, there was like, if you see a leader in automation, then Ace with My Wizard. So this was a tool that was developed primarily with keeping automation in mind, where all the sales people in the organization are able to get data based on automated. So you will know how much your client is kind of spending, how much, what is the potential to kind of reach out to them, what kind of solution and offerings would you be kind of looking at. So that was called as, like, a tool which was called as the My Wizard tool, right? So hence, like, if you see this, and this is the main concept of the integrated marketing in simple words, where you see all the different aspects of marketing which is going to be affecting the business positively, how through the actual work and actions you are able to deliver, and through the different channels. Now, this is all that you need to keep in mind. Do not be, like, thinking that, okay, these are some big languages or these are some big industry terms. No, all you need to remember is, like, think like a 360, think like a circle. How are you able to connect all the dots together and bring things together? And that is, like, the integrated marketing like, plan it was, right? And then, of course, like, as I mentioned, like, each one of the slides, you will see are actually talking about, like, what those were. We talked about Communication 360. So the ATC Live was one such television series, right? Then the Accenture Tech Talks was more about, like, using the social media handles and the leadership social media handles and paid promotions, etc., to talk about, like, what are those like, typically tech tech talks that happen. So a lot of times you may see in television, a lot of times you may go to YouTube channels to listen to podcasts or listen to some sort of tech talks, right? I think there's one very popular program in television, and it comes in radio as well, it comes in television as well, which is Rajiv Makni and the tech talks. I don't know if all of you have heard it, but this is very popular, where this gentleman Rajiv Makni talks about what is the latest gadgets that we can that's out in the market. Either it is mobile phones or tablets or smart watches, etc., right? So that's called the that is one of the program. So similarly, one of the tech talks would talk about what kind of innovation Accenture is doing, what's the latest. So it is all about communicating to the audiences through interesting formats, right? And then promoting it through the different social digital channels. That's important. Then again, like the heart of innovation, typically a program for it's more of a workshop and an events led program. And similarly, your automation amplified, the A Suite My Wizard, which we talked about, how would you typically do an event? How would you present, have different contests? Then there was a lot of social media promotions as well internally. So how would you typically do that, right? So these were the different examples, what would be an example of an integrated marketing communication and how typically one would go about it, right? So for example, if you see this was a report that was done, a research report, which talks about analyzing the reason for underrepresentation of women in technology careers, right? We took a sample size of so many women. The timeline was this, and the outcome was positioning Accenture as a leader in fostering diverse workforce. And the channels for use for promotion was your paid channels, your Google, your social, then your emails, etc., and stuff like that, right? So this was one. And of course, you have your different events. Events in marketing is always key, because events, they really are engaging. Events are places where people come and interact. So as a part of your integrated marketing, events becomes a very important forum, right? Any marketing or any integrated marketing that you do or you will do is always going to have a strong presence of an event. How do you run an event, right? So it's not only about running ads on social and digital, but it's also about bringing the people on ground and helping you to foster the community, or help you to engage with them, right? Then comes in one single shot, what was the overall social and digital marketing part of the entire integrated plan, right? So what would you typically do? How would you typically ensure that your communication and your messaging is always an evergreen? Because digital and social is something you will never stop, and hence it is called as evergreen, right? How would you bring the users to read more on Accenture.com? The same content which is hosted on your website. And I think in the previous classes we also talked about having content hosted on websites, etc. So how would you typically create those moments? How would you typically create those interests? Again, if you think of the IDA model, how would you create the awareness? How would you create the interest, desire, and the action, right? So all these together, if you see, is fulfilling all those four attributes. It is creating the awareness because you are promoting it on different channels and your website. It is providing your interest because you are making it interactive. For example, your virtual reality zones, etc., is more interactive, right? Which is building your desires to engage, right? So that's what it is, right? So I'll stop here for now, and then I'll see if there are some questions that you have before we move on to the more conversations around it.
I think, Soumyajit, what I feel is that instead of they asking questions, Accenture, well, you have given a model of Accenture. They are all these students are coming from the franchisee areas. Okay, why don't they develop a model of communication for their franchisee, and maybe show it to you in the first week or second week of August as a model itself?
Yes, Yes, absolutely. That was, I was thinking I will tell this towards the later half of the my present
I think then they will learn this slide better, because right now what is happening is, this is what Accenture has done, and Accenture has scripted a success story out of them. Okay, now these people, let them do a sort of a session which is simulation session. We'll call it as a simulation.
Absolutely.
Anyway, they have to do a simulation in July.
Yeah.
So you can give this as a simulation exercise where they develop a communication model. It's like each franchisee is having around 8 to 10 students. So let that be a project of a franchisee. Okay. Let them develop a communication model. Okay. On the growth process, on the deliverance, whether it is these courses, technical courses, on the lines of Accenture, maybe. Because all these are recording sessions, we can give them these sessions and let them prepare something for their franchisee, which the franchisees can later on leverage it as their business plan itself. What do you say on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking something very similar, but I was thinking I'll give them the case study sometimes maybe a little later in the class, but you already brought it up, and I totally
because
agree.
You're already covering integrated marketing.
Correct.
So I thought this is an ideal thing. Let them prepare a communication model, for the franchisee.
Like
absolutely. These franchisees are coming from, let's take places like Belgaum, Raichur, Gulbarga, then this. So this will be a big leverage point for the franchisee owners for developing a marketing communication, which they are anyway spending a huge amount of money outside. Let the student develop it, because it can be a part of the course and they can leverage out of it. What do you say, franchisees? What do you say? What is your take on that? This is Sarit Kumar this side asking you a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's
okay, sir. So let them, you ask the students to prepare a marketing communication process, show it to, get it vetted by Soumyajit in his future sessions. And once he vets it, then you can use that for your marketing development process for your long term. What do you think? Let the students make this as a simulation exercise.
Yes, sir.
And we will, and Soumyajit and the expert team will evaluate that and give them marks also. It is a part of your evaluation process as a simulation. They should prepare a communication model for your franchisee. Let them go through each and every unit as Accenture has done. Create a model, take the photographs, create a communication package and send it. And they can also send one copy to head office for us to vet. Are you clear, franchisees? Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Give this as a model. Soumyajit, take over. You are the boss as far as the evaluation of this simulation is concerned.
Yes, sure. I think let's do that. Let every franchisee work on a communication model. In fact, in the last class there were some role plays where
I know. I must congratulate you for it. In fact, one of my faculty was doing a role play from a sabji mandi. He was sitting there, but the course is so important that he left everything, and from that place he did the role play. So that is the level of the commitment which I want to see. So, which is good. You did a role play, I know. Very good.
Sure. Thanks for that. So in that role play also, there was more about how do we typically amplify further? So how do we typically ensure that the Keonics centers, for a particular region, can actually benefit more from the marketing? So I think carrying on from last class and this exercise, of a communication plan would be helpful for sure. So I think let's do that. Let's I think request to the faculties and the franchises are that if you are able to prepare this and maybe August 2nd week, or at least we have 3 weeks, 2 weeks from now, right? So maybe one of the classes there, we can actually spend on the role play. We can actually spend live interaction and evaluation.
Let them present it to you.
Yes,
let them present it to you. What is happening is, see, July I allowed you people to talk and they to listen. From August, they will talk and we people will listen and correct them wherever they are going wrong.
Correct. Exactly.
That is what is our motto in August. Okay.
Exactly. So let's do that in August, right? So So let's make a note. I think I request the faculties and franchises to kind of make a note.
Yeah, Shweta, Ashwin, Altaf, all of you, Abhilash, your second line. Saujanya, everybody take a note. You are supposed to give this project to them and evaluate this project. The third line and the fourth line, which is sitting here, should see that they are working on this project. Second week of August is what Soumyajit has told. We will again review it in the second week of August. Whichever area that you go, like Altaf or Ashwin, whichever area, please let your franchisees know. We will evaluate them as a simulation exercise for July. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. In the meanwhile, if there's any questions right now, and we can spend some few minutes to just answer from whatever you saw, I'm more than happy to kind of answer that. So in case there is any questions, maybe faculties or students, just quickly
Soumyajit,
or so we can
leave aside faculties. Let the students talk now.
Yeah, let the students
because
talk now.
What is happening now, Soumyajit, my second line faculty is becoming amazingly intelligent. But I want to see whether my students are also getting equally intelligent or not, because that is where I paid my money. Okay, so you ask the students now, what is the questions they have and what is it that they have understood and learned.
Yeah.
Please.
And students, you can put the question in the, put the question in the chat, or you can ask.
Yeah. Okay, I will pick up now. KTC Hubli. KTC Hubli, I can see some 7 students sitting there. Any one of you, please talk. Yeah. Please go ahead. Don't worry. I'm sitting there. I'm at your side only. If you people don't talk, then I'm a failure. So you please talk. What is an understanding which Soumyajit has given you about Accenture or for any other model? What is your understanding? What have you understood from this? Because you're going to do this simulation, 2nd week of August. So what is it? It is better you speak today and get your doubts cleared by Soumyajit. Soumyajit, repeat the question. Maybe I'm understanding they're not clear about the question. You can repeat the question.
The question is whatever I spoke about, firstly the IDA model and also about the integrating marketing, communications, etc. and the slides you saw from Accenture. If the students has any questions or doubts as to what could they not understand, or any thoughts they would want to share additionally, I am here to discuss that.
Yes. So I think the question is very clear. If you have any doubt, because if the students say I don't have any doubt, then I will ask questions. So it is better you ask your doubt if something is there. Please. I can see Purushottam Karkala. I can see KTC, Kavita. Ask anybody. Anybody can ask questions.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please.
Myself Jyoti from Kavita Computers. Myself Jyoti from Kavita Computers.
Okay.
From Gulbarga. From Gulbarga.
Gulbarga. Yes, Jyoti, carry on. What is your confusion? Tell me.
So, what is the meaning of integrated market communication, sir? Because we have not known anything about this.
Okay. Fine. So I'll answer. So marketing is a function in any organization. Like we do marketing, right? So let's say, for example, do you watch television? I'm sure you do. Do you read newspaper? Yes, you do. Do you read magazine? Yes, you do, right? What do you see there? You see news information. At the same time, you see different advertisements as well, right? Something talking about maybe some sales going on or some offers going on, etc., right? That's marketing. How does marketing actually lead to such examples which you will see? It is basically through communication. So communication can happen via print, which is your newspapers and your magazines. It can happen via digital, which is your website, or it can happen via social, which is all your social media channels. But everything that you see as an information is nothing but the communications part of it. What do you see? Either it's a video, or it's a image, or it's a written text, etc. This is nothing but the different forms of communication, right? And who does this? It is a team of marketeers working in an organization who does this on different channels, so that people like us, we are able to see and learn more about the products and services. Correct? So that is marketing and communications together, right? Integrated means it is all together. So different channels, different messages, different promotional activities, right? If you bring everything together, then that word is called integrated, right? And maybe I took an example of Accenture to kind of show you, but let me talk about a very simple example, which probably you may understand better, right? So just think of few years back when Narendra Modi sir became our prime minister, right? 2014. One of his goal and ambition was to ensure we have a Swachh Bharat, a clean India, right? And we all are aware of Swachh Bharat, what he would be talking everywhere and inspiring all of us to adhere to it, right? So now think about it. When the Swachh Bharat campaign started, right, where all did you see the messages? You saw it on hoardings, you saw it on billboards, you saw it on newspaper, you saw it on television, you saw it on social media, and you are still seeing them. It's not over, it's still continuing, right? So the government of India, in that case, did an integrated marketing campaign which helped reach out to all parts of the country, every cities and villages and townships, through the different forms of medium, but talking about the same concept. The concept is Swachh Bharat, but how you are communicating that is through different channels, right? Now that is an integrated marketing campaign. Does this help?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next question.
Hello, sir. Good
Anybody
afternoon.
else? Yeah, good. KTC Hubli.
Sir, how AI with Python course will help in digital marketing? Sir?
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. Very good question. Connectivity questions.
Yeah.
Soumyajit,
Yes.
your take.
Yeah. So see, AI, there are two parts to it. One is AI and Python is what you will learn technically, right? You will be knowing how to kind of work on those platforms. The second is you may have the skill sets, you may know what to work on, but how will you get the work?
They'll write letter to everybody.
So somewhere you will have to kind of join an organization which will give you that work.
Okay,
Right?
and as far as
How does the organization give you that work?
has to be careful.
The organization will hire you, but then organization also needs to have a certain project on which you can work on AI and Python, correct? So then the organization, and typically AI and Python would mean most likely a technology company you are working on, then the technology company will use marketing to talk to the external world and the industry that's saying, you know what, we have AI and Python capability to work on projects. And through marketing, you will take that message out so that clients who are seeing those communication is understanding, okay, fine, this company has the capability. Let me go to them. Let me kind of come to them for this contract or for this project. And then the company wins that clients. And once the company wins that clients, you as an employer, you as an employee, because you know the technical skills, you join and you deliver that project to that organization, to the client, right? So that's how it is connected. So if you are somebody who is a technical person who learns AI and Python, you will be a delivery person in that organization. You will deliver their client project, correct? But if you are a person who understands AI and Python, but you are not interested in delivery, but you may want to probably be in sales or you want to be in marketing, then in that organization, the company will hire you as a marketing or a salesperson who will go and talk to the clients, pitch, bring that client as a win for the company, right? So these are the various possibilities.
I'll just add what Soumyajit is telling for the benefit of the students. When EVA was launched, you know what is EVA? EVA is basically an AI robot for HDFC Bank. Okay, correct me, Soumyajit.
Yeah.
Correct me. Yeah. Now it was launched basically for this EVA robot. It was placed in Worli Seaface in Mumbai. All the entry level activity, whether it is marketing or whether it is non-marketing activity, was done by EVA. They did not put any person there. So EVA was basically preparing and creating the feedback chart. EVA was preparing and putting those feedback chart to the people for analysis, and also the initial part of the promotion was taken up by EVA. So please understand, EVA is a robot and totally AI dominated robot doing the entry level marketing for HDFC Bank. So to make the student who has asked this question, this is the connectivity of the digitalization as well as the AI. That a robot which is doing the marketing, integrated marketing, entry-level operations for a bank. Correct me, Soumyajit, if I've explained that right.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So
And
have I answered the question, or Soumyajit has answered the question which the girl had asked? The lady who had asked this question, KTC Hubli, are you convinced?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next question, please. Next question. I know the faculties want to ask questions. Okay, I will take KTC Hubli. Go ahead. You want to ask some next question as a faculty or as a center? Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Because I know I will not curb that you're, this. Please go ahead. Ask. What is your question? Please. Soumyajit will answer. Please ask. Or if you don't have any question, we'll move to the next. No problem. I leave it to you. I leave it totally to you. Yeah, please ask. Yeah, Shaukat Ali, please ask.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Shaukat Ali. Your question is to Soumyajit. I'm only a in-between person sitting. Soumyajit will answer. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Nowadays, in the modern days, marketing plays a very important role. So without marketing, we cannot sell our products, sir. And even courses, regarding courses also, there are so many advertisements, online courses we get here. Online digital marketing is very, very useful nowadays, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So what's the question? You would want to hear more about that, or was that a?
It was a statement given.
Oh, okay, fine.
It was a statement given. Yeah. So thanks a lot, Shaukat Ali. There is some questions I'm seeing in the chat box. Soumyajit, do you want to take it up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can marketing be automated to some extent using AI? Absolutely. I think the example of Eva is one such example, right? And also, today the world is so much about AI that, simple example. A lot of times, when you log on to the website or you want to chat with a customer experience, a customer service professional, maybe your bank card is not working, or maybe you need to open a new account, or maybe whatever that is, right? So there's a chat bot. The chat bot is nothing but AI, right? So how then typically through your marketing, you are able to kind of ensure that the communication is going through, but it is more AI enabled, correct? So a lot of this is one example. A lot of the data that you see from coming from the different users who interact or who behave in a particular way from your marketing campaigns is kind of stored in a central server, and then they are broken down into, based on the different the data scientists, they actually kind of break it down into different patterns. They try to understand certain patterns, and they kind of try to map that, right? So a marketing person can take those data and automate certain processes. So for example, let's say you buy something on Flipkart, or maybe you don't buy something on Flipkart. Let's say you go to the final checkout page, right? But you don't submit checkout, and you don't buy online. Immediately after some time, you will see an email coming to you, right, saying that hey, we saw you coming to this page, but you have not really checked out, right? How did the system understand that? That is nothing but the AI, because system understood your behavior, right, and ensured they put in a trigger to you and reminder to you, saying that you may want to buy something, right? If you don't like to buy X, why don't you buy ABC? The system will also give you some similar suggestions as to, based on what maybe you have previously purchased, or what the different products you have browsed through, right? So this is all AI. This is all about your AI and ML, that is machine learning combined, how the intelligence of the data gets mapped in, and then the marketer is able to use that to kind of deliver the communications to you.
Some of us have enrolled for AI with Python. Should we do that? Simulation is for everybody. See, you have to understand one thing. When you are doing a model, when you are doing a communication model, whether you are AI with Python, IoT with Python, you have to use simulation. Simulation, let me tell you, is for everybody. I made it very clear. Role plays is for everybody. It's a part of your evaluation. So you give a simulation or you incorporate from AI angle how you will make a communication. That's it. Simple. Correct me, Soumyajit. Go ahead. You can
Yeah. No, that's correct. That's correct. That's right.
Sir.
Yeah, any other question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, regarding of the privacy and security of the regarding, I want to ask something, sir. So, what are the legal complication about collecting the data, using of the customer data, purpose of the digital marketing, sir? Nowadays.
So there are different rules and regulations in different countries in the world, right? Some countries in the world have very strict regulations and rules, and Europe is one. Like in all the countries in Europe have the most strictest of all the rules.
Yeah, they have sent a mail on project-centric learning. That's what I wanted to communicate. Okay. They have sent a mail to everybody for project-centric learning. Okay. Yeah.
So Europe as a continent and all the countries in Europe have the most strictest rules and regulations. So typically, digitally, if an user is going to visit a particular site, they have to accept what is called as cookies, right? And we all are familiar with different cookies because when we browse, we also see that, right? But what are cookies, by the way? Cookies are nothing but your temporary internet files which are saved in your browser or in your system, right? And then cookies store certain behaviors. So later on, the system is able to understand how your behavior has been, and hence they would be showing you more of those similar communications and marketing, right? But in order to accept the cookies, now, as per the rules, the user is given the choice whether he wants to accept the cookies, right? Whether he wants to receive further communications, right? Or the user can accept the cookies partly, saying that only certain information I would want to share. I would not want to share the full thing. So all these different aspects come into the picture. Then secondly, a lot of these marketing activities that happens, where you receive an email promotion, or when you receive, let's say, for example, lot of ads being targeted to you, unless you provide the consent that yes, I am okay to receive a subscription, I'm okay to receive a newsletter, or I'm okay to receive further communication, one as a marketer cannot be sending it out to you, right? If you do, then there's a legal violation. Now, these are very strict rules in countries like Europe, etc., right? Other countries are developing. In India, unfortunately, the rules are not that strict, but it is getting there. Our information and communications minister is actually taking up a project, and I'm very sure in the next 2 to 3 years, Indian rules regarding digital is going to be more and more strict than what it is right now, right? Right now, for example, a lot of times you receive a phone call, you receive an SMS, you receive a WhatsApp, etc. Because the rules are quite vague. It's not really standardized. There are some rules, but there are not some strict rules. But once that happens, then the entire marketing and how you market is going to be very different. You have to respect the user's privacy. You have to respect the users, what they would want to hear from you, right? So you cannot be a doing a marketing in a forceful manner. It has to be a pull, not a push, right? So I think that's where we are in this data privacy landscape.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure. So if there are no more questions, Sarit sir, I was wondering if we could do some kind of a role play. Maybe just to keep in mind some sort of a interview or a case study simulation kind of thing.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So any thoughts, and you have any
what I think the best role play at this point of time, what I feel for them is on the interview angle is that, see, most of them have taken a course on AI. I'll tell you, some of them have taken a course on IoT. Okay. Some of them are into web development. So web development, yes, the project of yours will take care, because they have to develop a communication model where they will do it. Now maybe AI is the bulk. So I think let us have an interview around AI with Python. Is that okay? Franchisees and my faculty, students, are you okay if we do a role play? Me and Soumyajit or somebody else would like to pitch in. Some of the faculty. I think the second line faculty also should pitch in. Altaf,
yes, sir.
Can you pitch in with me in this role play? Last time it was Ashwin, and so I think today you can pitch it along with me.
Yeah, that's fine for me, but I request any other faculties also come into picture. It will be better, I believe, sir, because I think
better?
last Sunday. No, I request any other faculty other than me also will do. Even I'm fine with this, but I have no issues. But I want other faculties also, to interact.
No,
so that,
I am with you right now.
Okay.
I am with you in this role play. Soumyajit, me, and I need one second line faculty. So I choose Altaf. Is that okay, Altaf?
Okay, sir.
No, it's not a force. If you are not very comfortable, I will
I'm not.
put to some. Okay,
I'm
you are not very comfortable. Okay,
Yes,
Saujanya,
yes.
what about you? Saujanya is there?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Saujanya, are you comfortable if you play a role along with me and Soumyajit?
Yeah, sure,
In the
sir.
sense, I and you will be giving the interview, and Soumyajit will be firing the questions on AI in the digital marketing space. Is that okay?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay, great. So Soumyajit, me and Saujanya will be the students who are being interviewed, and you will basically be an interviewee, okay, playing this role of AI. Basically, you pose us questions from an AI with Python, or leave aside Python. Python is a programming stuff. So they will learn it. AI, something to do with AI. How, from a digital marketing angle, it is going to work. Okay. So Soumyajit, we are waiting for your questions. We are the students, or we are the kids who have come to your organization to give interview. That is the background. Yes. Let's start.
Sure. Okay.
Saujanya, are you ready?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, great. Thanks, Saujanya. Yeah.
Okay.
Carry.
So maybe what I will do is I will actually show something. I'll share my screen, right? And then I will ask you if you were to use AI or if you were to use data to improve the experience of the users.
Absolutely.
How would that be?
Wonderful.
Right?
Wonderful.
And I will probably just give me one moment.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. You're able to see now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is in fact thoughtworks.com, the company where I work for, right?
Correct.
So this is the home page.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
If I slowly scroll down, right, you will see there is a particular storyline that is evolving.
Yes.
Right? Who we are, what do we do, what are our different aspects, right? We talk about bringing together everybody, etc. Then there's some featured content, some specific messaging publications, etc. Right? Then we bring in the human angle of we work together, and of course there are some latest insights, etc stuff, and then you have a get in touch, and then you have the different privacy policies and all those things that that's there, right? And you can move on, right?
Okay.
Now we recently ran a campaign, right, a few months back, where we wanted users to understand exactly what I just articulated right now. When they browse through the page, they understand that what are our three different pillars. That is together we work to deliver extraordinary impact for the clients, right? It was a mixed result. There was some geographies which resulted well. There were some geographies which probably didn't result very well, right?
Yeah.
And we were wondering internally that if we were to analyze the data, or if there were some suggestions which we would do, keeping the more of the data and the AI in mind, what are the few things we can make a change here, or what are the few things we can bring in here based on that, which can deliver a different experience altogether, yet keep the same storyline in mind.
Okay. See, you told data, right? You told data. So I think the first and the foremost thing as a interviewer, I would like to ask you this question. Did you put this in the social media space?
Yes.
Very good. So when you put it in the social media space, then what is the evaluation of the various social media inputs? I would like to know that as a data point first. That is Facebook. What is the hit of the Facebook? What is the hit of LinkedIn? What is the Twitter? What is the Insta? What exactly are these four major ones? What is the hit? And what is their experience about your web page? That is point number one. Right. Once I get the data, then I will transfer the data into a sort of a simulated technical environment. I will put it, and then I would try to bring out through AI, whatever the students are learning, through the AI experiences, that what are the first 2 to 3 problem child which you have to immediately address. This is my immediate thought process or an immediate answer to your website and the amalgamation of data points and the AI part of it. Soujanya, you can always add over whatever I have told right now. Yeah, please.
So, sir, you can add more language so that it could be geographically relevant to the countries, and even add dark mode or other visual or audibly accessible, like audio accessibility options, so that it's like more accessible by more people. And one more thing you can use is like use images, like pretty well images, if you can, I mean, sync according to the data. And yeah, like
what Soumyajit is telling is based on your data inputs, the first 3 points or 4 points after your social media evaluation, you incorporate that in your website.
Yes, right, sir.
Yeah.
Right. So are you saying that, like, and it's a follow-up question, right? Thanks for the answers. The follow-up question is like, are you suggesting that these images or the graphics that you see here right now, there needs to be some more change probably? Is that like, what, you would recommend, instead of, say, for example, having an image like this, would you have something to do with more human figures? Or is there something way in which the users who are coming here is actually able to understand what we're talking about? Like, what could we do differently? What could AI do?
This is between me and Soujanya, but we would like to definitely have the data points to answer these questions, because once the data points are clear to us, then from there we are going to derive through an AI process that what exactly we want you to do in the website. For example, the process, the page which you are showing where you are sitting, it gives me a very nice pictorial presentation.
Right.
But when I see your website, it is more of a mechanized presentation.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a mismatch. Well, that is what Soujanya is hitting at. So when see, normally in a website, what we do, and students, all of you should listen this, this role play is only because of for you people. See, you should also understand one thing. When you are giving a certain pictorial thing, the people's expectation is they should see more of a pictorial aspect. If you give more of a mechanized format, they want to see everything mechanized. Because in a process like this, where we are in a digital space, there is an every chance that people might get confused. And you are hitting at working executives, you are hitting at housewives, you are hitting at maybe the Facebook users. So there is a diverse field which you are using at. Now, whenever you are hitting at a diverse field, Soumyajit, you have to give a language which is understandable to all.
Yeah.
That is why, like other day you were explaining me, and I still remember LinkedIn. Why you want a LinkedIn connection to Facebook? Because Facebook will give you what is their pastime hobbies.
Yeah.
So that sort of a connectivity, maybe we as an interviewer, we as this are not getting it here. We are getting a bit of a mechanized approach here.
Yeah.
And mechanized approach, everybody is not keen, everybody is not clear. Maybe that is what Soujanya is trying to put it through.
Yes, sir.
Soujanya, if I understood it right.
Yes, sir, that's right. So too many static images as of now, so you can try to add more videos which would attract people's attention, like maybe as sir said. So we have all diversion kind of people, so not only IT professionals, so that we can target all kinds of people, like a layman also can understand what is this exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I tried to mention.
Oh, thank you. And I think that's a very good answer, because this is something very similar that, like, we internally also kind of came up with, right? So to your point, sir, the data showed something very interesting, angle, right? And let me share the screen again, and this probably would be a good example. So let's say when somebody was searching for ThoughtWorks in Google, just ThoughtWorks, right? Our expectation was like they would come onto this page and they would probably try to understand, like, what this story is all about. Like, typically we do a strategy, we design engineering, etc. and stuff like that, right? But majority of the users came in and clicked on careers, right? So which means somewhere our keywords and our ads, what we were talking about, did not resonate well with the users. Correct. Then secondly, we had different banners on different display and social media advertisements which were talking about exactly this one, right? Where extra passion, and then a few other extra, right? And then there were banners which talked about these as well, right? We were expecting that from that banner and the connect, that users would come here and then they would click here, etc., and stuff like that, and no more, right? However, even from the banners, which users who came, they primarily went and clicked on what do we do, right? Then the second set went into careers. Third about investors, because there was some news release that happened that point in time, correct? So which somewhere also meant that our banners did not resonate or speak the story as we were expecting, right?
And the data and the AI which you are talking about, which you just now showed on what we do, data and the AI, some way or the other, as a layman, the data and the AI was not able to connect. Like data and the AI, when you open this page, winning with data and AI, I think this is the answer which the students are looking at.
Yes.
What is the use? Because most of the students are asking this question. That the session which you are taking, how does it sync well with AI and data? So students, this is how it syncs. With the AI and the data, okay, this company could get these things. See, if you see an average Fortune 500 company makes 400 million decisions per day. This is nothing but data. If you ask me, this is data. Now, these decisions are made in a rapidly changing, complex global environment. Now, this 400 million data to be literally brought into the first 3 decisions, human brain will take a lot of time, but AI will do it very fast. With the backup of an AI evaluation, it will happen very fast. Students, are you getting what we are trying to explain you? Yes or no? Yes. So good. So what we are trying to tell you is that data is 400 million out of the Fortune 500 company. AI will bring out the top 3 decision-making process maybe in just 20 minutes. A human brain or a human team of ThoughtWorks leadership will take 3 months. So that is how ThoughtWorks will try to reduce the time and understand what are the 3 top priorities which they have to address. Correct me, Soumyajit.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the usage of AI and data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
absolutely. And to Saujanya's point,
yes,
the same explanation what you just explained, sir, right now.
Yeah.
For us marketeers, we have to capture it and we have to communicate that. Right?
Yes.
That is my marketing and communications, right? And if I'm doing it in an integrated manner across all different channels, Google, social, Instagram, your CNNs of the world, BBCs of the world, etc., television, etc., that becomes my integrated communication and marketing.
So, student, are you clear? Are you clear, or you have questions? Please ask questions. I can see some questions in the chat box.
Yeah, there are some questions in the chat box. I'll
take the best practices to rank our YouTube video. Soumyajit would like to take that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. YouTube video ranking happens pretty much similar to how a regular Google ranking happens, because YouTube is a Google product, right? So when you upload a video, one, you need to ensure that the video has a title, the video has a description, right? And the video has tags, what is this video about? If the video is about, let's say AI, then hashtag AI or hashtag ML or something like that, right? The description, etc., should be written in a way where, the words within those 150 words or 150 characters or 250 characters, etc., should have the relevant keywords. Like, for example, you can always describe it saying this video is about a machine learning experience to improve a customer return on investment, something on that, right? So then Google would try to analyze in the back end, if somebody is looking for a customer experience, somebody is looking for an AI, somebody is looking for a return on investment, then automatically these videos are going to be promoted on the top, right? And as the video starts ranking higher, then users click on it, more and more users click on it. The more and more users click on it, then typically the system understands that this is relevant, right? And then your ranking is kind of maintained. So that's how typically your ranking happens. So remember one thing, that anything on Google, not only YouTube, but any Google product, right? The most key important aspect is the relevancy, because that is the fundamental of Google as an organization. They have a vision, they always had a vision, they still have a vision, that how do we take the right information and give it to the users. thinking from the user point of view. That was the core in how the company developed, right? Any product of Google that you see, be it a Google Map, be it a search, be it a YouTube, this is the fundamental principle of Google, right? So ensure that you have the relevant product, you have the relevant information, you have the relevant headlines and descriptions, so that users are able to identify what this video is all about, or users are able to identify the right kind of a language and communication, right? So that's how typically the ranking will work.
Right. So is that question answered? Ashlesh, you have asked a question. Have you been satisfied with the answer? You can write in your chat box in the meanwhile, whether yes or no, whatever, or you have just asked the question and vanished. It should not happen like that. Ashlesh comes from which franchisee? Which franchisee is this? Okay. Vaishali Computers. Yeah, Ashlesh, tell me, have your question been answered?
Sir, Ashlesh from Belgavi Center, sir.
Okay, Belgavi. Now, is Ashlesh there? He has asked a question. Has it been answered? Is Ashlesh satisfied?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Anupama, you find out from Ashlesh and then come back to us. Okay.
Okay,
yeah, Vaishali is asking how integrated marketing communication differs from traditional advertising and promotion. Soumyajit would like to take that.
Yeah. So integrated marketing and communications is nothing but a accumulation of all the different marketing and advertising, right? As I gave the example of the Swachh Bharat campaign, right? Now I'll give the example again. Now Swachh Bharat campaign had traditional advertising. There was a billboard advertising, there was a newspaper advertising, there was television advertising, etc. Right? At the same time, Swachh Bharat campaign also had your social media advertising, your digital advertising. There is a Government of India website that is talking about Swachh Bharat, etc. Right? So which means the campaign is Swachh Bharat, looked upon by or managed by the Government of India, right? At the same time, the messaging is happening across different channels. That is integrated marketing communications. So it is nothing different from your advertising or promotion. It is all about how you bring all together under the same umbrella. So then as a campaign manager or as a campaign leader, you at the end of the day is going to look at the data that is coming from the campaign and be able to say, okay, from television, we got so much of engagement. From digital, we got so much of engagement. From social media, we got so much of engagement, right? So again, integrated marketing communication, the data becomes very important because it's all about data, which you will then analyze and break further to understand, what channels worked well, right? So that's the tie, that's the linkage.
So Vaishali, are you satisfied? Is your question answered? Vaishali Computers, Bellary.
Yes, sir.
Great, wonderful. So I think now you can go ahead with Soumyajit with your next part, which is IBM.
Yes.
And yeah, so if they don't have any questions, but I'm still waiting for Ashlesh, whether he has been answered or not. Okay, KTC Hubli, one more question. I think Madam wants one more question, which is going to come in. Yeah, Madam, please go ahead.
What are the job roles of AI with Python in different advertisement media companies?
Okay, great. So Soumyajit, would you like to take this or I'll come in? Yeah, you take it. You take it.
I can take it, and then sir, you can add on more to it.
Yeah, please.
Right? So typically in the advertising in media, somebody who knows AI would be a very good candidate for automation, marketing automation. So say for example, an organization wants to build a chatbot, an organization wants to build let's say for example a database of how you would do proper email marketing. An organization wants to have a very strong analytics system and functions, right? So learning of AI and Python, etc., is brilliant because somebody who knows this is quickly able to analyze data. So if I am a marketer and I want to understand what is it that needs to be done to differentiate, like for example the question which I asked Soujanya and sir, right? How can I make the enhancement of my website and give a better experience to the users?
Yeah.
So somebody who knows AI and Python would be immediately able to analyze all the data that is coming in, right? And quickly be able to give me saying that this is a trend we observe. Correct. Maybe we should tweak this. Maybe we should change this, right? So a lot of these data scientists or analytics, like, roles that is open in an organization within digital marketing, skill sets like AI and Python are absolutely gold mine. Like, we would really want to have that.
Yeah, I would like to add what Soumyajit has told. Students, you have to understand one thing. There is something called as a traditional marketeer and there is something called as a technical technocrat marketeer. If you do AI with Python, IoT with Python, you're a runaway take point. In fact, then a corporate will lap you, because reason being, he is getting a technocrat and he's also getting a traditional marketeer. So if he has to take two persons' job, he will take out of you. So as a business person, as I told in Anil Yera's role play yesterday, if you remember, I was basically, me and Anil, we were playing a role to explain you that what is it that the organization gain if we take. So what Soumyajit has told right now is that if you are an AI specialist and a data point specialist or a Python programmer, I will definitely take you than a plain marketeer, maybe an MBA also. I will not consider him, but I will consider you as a person, maybe a graduate with a certification on AI with Python, as a person in my company. Correct me, Soumyajit. If you were given an option, you will prefer this person as a candidate for your company rather than maybe an MBA from marketing who has come from a conventional science. Correct me if I'm going wrong somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, no, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I see a few more questions that has come in also. Let me answer that first quickly.
Yeah, please.
Then I'll move on to my next thing. So what are the main marketing communication objectives? I think all that, we have been talking about, like, marketing communications main objective is basically taking out the right messaging to the users so that the IDA model, which we started the class with, right? You are able to create an awareness, you are able to generate an interest, you're able to generate, like, an intent and a purchase, right? So how smartly we do it is going to be important. So in fact, all the examples, like, for example, even the website example, which we talked about, how can we make it better? So marketing communication objective would be to how to make it better, how to enhance the user experience, right? So that's the answer. Then the second question by Mohammed Sofi is, hi sir, wanted to ask, how is blogging valuable? So blogging is valuable because blog helps to articulate the content to the users, what the blogger is writing, number one. And if you remember my last class, we talked about how blogging actually helps in creating a brand through an SEO. Because when you start creating more blogs and publishing it, and if the users are searching with the right keywords, then the blog results, they start coming up in the Google, if you remember my last class, right? So that's how typically when users are searching for some information, and if they find the right blog, it just helps to build the rank. It just helps to kind of create the search engine optimization, even make it even better, so that you rank higher and higher, right? And the users start getting the right information. So blogging is a very valuable and important activity in digital marketing, right? And then Madan says that the website you have shown is looking informative, but it has a lot going on. Even though the content is well organized, people lose interest before completing a paragraph. My choice would be a brief 1 or 2 lines info on a topic and redirect for more information on the same topic. I totally agree, Madan, and thank you so much for sharing this. I will personally take this information to my colleagues at ThoughtWorks, and I will let them know that this is how we should be thinking of how we would be wanting to build and redesign or re-evaluate how our website should be, right? I think this is a very valuable information. So thank you so much. Right. Okay. So now I'll move on to the next part of the conversation today, and I will talk about an example from IBM, right? And this example is from 2015, so which is almost 7 years back, right? But what I want to bring to you that how the industry had started to think about their digital journey from that time onwards, and how we have evolved to an AI automation data now, in all the conversations we had during the first half of the class, right? So let me kind of share my screen and show this example. But keep in mind that this was done something which was years back, and then the question, and we can also have a question and answer probably, and you can probably suggest that if this is how the digital journey is being created, then how can we even do better in today's world, right? I think that's the comparison I just wanted to kind of bring, right? So let me share my screen, and you should be able to see the screen now, right? So as I said, this is an example of a digital journey optimization, which IBM at that point in time had created what is called as a marketplace, right? A marketplace is a concept where you go and you find all the different solutions, and hence it is called a marketplace. And then you choose which solution you want to use, and then go ahead and make a purchase, right? Typically, how marketplace works. What was the mission typically, right? And if you see on the right hand side, this buyer journey, how an user would behave when they go on to a particular website or a page or an app, is determined by discovery, engagement, conversion, and advocacy, right? It is nothing but the same IDA model, just worded in a different language. But what is important to understand is every buyer has a certain journey, and that journey starts from creating that awareness to understanding what is that product, then engaging, and then converting, that is making a decision. And then of course advocacy, which means basically going and talking more about it, sharing the information with the rest, etc., right? Now IBM was going through a change where they wanted to approach the digital marketing in a very different manner. How? So basically the mission was to create a holistic digital experience that delighted the customers and partners across the full customer life cycle, right? Now this is the full customer life cycle, what you see, the IDA model. This is a full customer life cycle, right? So how through a digital experience you would be able to provide that was IBM's intention. How did IBM think they would go about it, right? And these are what is called as the 3 pillars, right? If you remember the Accenture example, there was building blocks, right? If you remember the previous example, here we are calling it 3 pillars, but essentially it is pretty much the same. So every mission would have some building blocks or pillars based on which you will develop the plans further and further, right? So what were the 3 pillars? Build and deliver a world-class digital experience platform, right? Expand IBM's digital portfolio to drive reach, scale, and revenue growth. Develop and recruit an expert digital workforce so that who are able to kind of manage it, right? So pretty much similar to what you saw in the Accenture slide as well, except that both the businesses are different and both are different organizations, but the overall objective was the same, keeping in mind the buyer journey model, right? Then typically IBM broke it down even further, right? There were 64 countries where IBM was operating. How would you typically break this by ensuring that everybody has a similar experience, right? So just a few minutes back during the question and answer, Saujanya had a very relevant example where she mentioned that maybe the website or the language can be customized for regions, like regional languages, etc., right? Because the people over there doesn't understand English maybe, and maybe we can provide that experience. So even in case of IBM, the English speaking countries was one group, the non-English speaking countries was another group. But when you would launch this content on the website, the English and the non-English should be launched at the same time, right? So that was the optimization and the digital kind of plan that IBM had. And if you see this diagram here, right? So focusing on priority offerings and activating the marketplace, we talked about what a marketplace is, right? How would you optimize in 3 different stages the entire digital journey, correct? We first step is optimize it, the digital journey optimization. Second is like, keep on optimizing even further, like basically like, look at the data, look at like, how we would improve. And third is like, how you scale, correct? So this part, the second part, the 1, 2, 3 optimization part is where data and AI comes in very handy, right? Because by that time you would have started your digital journey, and here you are starting to get the different data, and then you optimize that based on like, whether it's a Google search, whether it's a social media, whether it's a banner advertising, etc., right? So, and then the entire like, piece kind of works. So this is how typically the digital journey optimization was conceptualized. How would you activate it? It's different like, stages of activating it, right? Firstly, like, develop the right website pages on IBM.com. Secondly, like, include the right content on that pages. Third is like, assess and optimize the digital journey, which we talked about in the previous slide, right? And then fourth is, of course, by helping like, connecting it with the different technologies, ensuring that the right analytics tool is in place, ensuring that the data is flowing correctly so that like, teams are able to evaluate, etc., right? And this is the slide which talks about how the entire journey is going to look like all that we talked about in the previous slides. How the first phase is the local kind of marketplace, that is local countries. Then like, once somebody comes onto the page, like, what do they see, where do they go from, where do the users come from, like, what kind of campaigns, what kind of channels do they use, right? And then like, how the end-to-end digital journey kind of starts and ends, right? So this is how the activation of the campaigns actually took place, right? And what's more important for you to like, remember is this: if you see this entire like flow and the user flow here, the most important would be how are you using the data further. So in every slide is something called as optimization. So how would you use the data to optimize further? And that is where in today's world, like this was 2016, but in today's world, data and AI had advanced quite a bit than what it was that point in time, right? So today's world, if you take this model and want to implement, then all your AI and Python will come into the picture, right? All your data, like, mining will come into the picture, right? So because while the model is there, the important thing is to how do you kind of scale in today's world, right? So I just wanted to bring this comparison between like, how companies are thinking and how there has been a digital journey all throughout the last 6-7 years or a decade, how companies were thinking, how the basic thinking is remaining the same, but how we are enhancing that with like, our capabilities around data, AI, and all those different latest technologies. So that's what like, I wanted to kind of bring, so that like, it helps you to think, right? And it helps you to understand that like, how you can implement data and AI more and more, and the importance of this, like, these topics and these courses, right?
Another thing to add on, I don't know whether the students know or not, there is a full-fledged AI, like Eva, I told you in HDFC, you have Watson in IBM. So Watson is nothing but an AI prototype which does all the works of a quantity-based technique. So what Soumyajit has told, that all this transformation which is taking place, it involves data to the billions and millions of data. Now this Watson's job is to bring it down again to the 15 or 20 top, ideas and outputs for helping the decision making for the top corporates. Correct me, Soumyajit, if my thinking is right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my main intention was to kind of bring in this differentiation and the comparison, and also to give you an understanding that how over the years, right, this field has evolved. Like today you may be taking this course around data and AI and Python, etc. If you are not able to stay relevant, then 3 years down the line you will become obsolete, correct? And that is how fast technology is changing. So what you're learning today, you will need to apply, and not only apply, but keep constantly upgrading yourself so that like, you're not becoming obsolete, right? And that's important. So please, like, my request would be to take the exercises what we are doing or whatever we are discussing right now in the classes, etc., through role plays or the question answers. Try to see how you are able to apply that, right? Whenever you are getting that simulation, or whenever you are getting an opportunity to probably work, get to an interview, or eventually you will get into an organization. Otherwise, because technology is moving so fast, you will become stagnant, right? Which is something not desirable. So I think a lot of the questions which you folks asked today about how can we apply, how can we apply this, right? I think that's important. That's a key takeaway, right? So yeah. So any questions on this, this IBM, or any thoughts around this? What we talked about.
Ask questions, please. Students, okay, faculty also can ask questions because we have come to more or less to the end. Another 15 minutes are there, so faculties can also ask questions if they want to. Second line,
Hello.
third line. Where is my third line faculty? Are they there? Centers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want a couple of questions from my third line faculty, my interns, MCA interns. Please ask questions. My second line is asking, third line I want to see, because you are also a teacher. You are teaching students. So my third line, who is already there in the centers, my MCA interns, please ask some questions.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
This is Taha Furkhan from Hubli.
Okay.
I need to know, as of now, IA, artificial intelligence is acting kind of role. What would be the future of digital marketing? In future, what technologies would be there in the digital marketing?
So,
yes, Soumyajit would like to take that.
See, all these technologies which we see right now, AI, ML, etc., they're going to stay. They're not going to change. It is only that how these technologies evolve even further. That is what I am kind of thinking of, right? And then also how are we applying this in digital? How are we applying this technology in digital? And one such very good example will be what we now call as a metaverse, right? Now, today, for example, we are using Zoom and we are kind of conversing, but in a metaverse, it is all virtual, where every people would have an avatar. So maybe maybe I would also be in a part of the classroom as all you folks are sitting together, right? Because it's a metaverse. Maybe I would be standing up and walking and talking to you, because the avatars would be speaking to each other. So it's a complete virtual simulation. So that's the next level of digital experience that the industry is moving towards, right? So typically, it's more of the virtual reality and the augmented reality, that we call. These are the technologies that is going to be really prevalent in the coming years, and where digital is kind of going towards, right? How will this help? This will help in multiple. So it's not only about organizations, but it is also about, let's say, for example, governance, or any other typical meetings, right? So for example, even governments can use this. Governments can use this virtual to actually connect with the different states or the ministers from the different states. And an organization can use it to kind of connect with different people across the globe, and actually talk about events can be kind of held in the virtual space, right? So so digital's future is moving towards more virtual.
I think Soumyajit, if you see the recent G7 meeting,
yeah,
as well as the other meetings of BRICS nation, was done on a metaverse only.
Yeah.
Because that was basically a VR placed with all the 8 countries, who are part of that. So that is what is the future going to be. Already the government is using it. Whenever our Prime Minister is, giving a session, he uses both. He takes the hybrid model, which is the online, where all the DCs and all the, the top secretaries sit on an online, and with the ministers, he's offline. So both he's doing together. So I think it is already on. It is already going on.
Absolutely. And India has been one of the early adopters. Compared to many countries, India has been an early adopter. And I always tell this to my colleagues and my friends that we all are extremely lucky to be Indians and in being in India, because right now, our country is going through a massive digital revolution, right? So the opportunity is here. So there's opportunities endless and opportunities here, right? So if you see like the kind of products and services we have evolved, many countries in the world, they don't have it, or they don't like they probably are, their ecosystem is not so much, right? So ours is exactly where the opportunity is kind of there, right, to make it more digital and seamless. I think that's where we would want to see like the digital kind of going through, like the IoT, the connectivity, the Internet of Things, like how you're connecting each services. Example could be like your metro rail and all your public transport system, right? So if you maybe have one smart card, you are able to use in metro, use in a bus, use in like any other public system, right? So that's digital. Your digital wallets, right? So how are these products even created? These products are all created based on like your AI, data, machine learning, IoT, right? IoT actually connects everything together, right? So so that's the future. That's what is the future, is what I would say.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Myself, Sriram Kamath from Justin for Kundapura. So, sir, can you spot the differences in India and outside India, like implementation of these new technologies, sir, like their applications? How are we using in India and outside India?
Yes, there is. Right now, if you look at it, there is a lot of like differences which you can notice, right? Especially in the area of infrastructure, right? India is still developing its infrastructure to quite an extent, but if you go and travel to the Western and the more developed countries, you will see that the infrastructure is very well developed, and these technologies are really playing a role in the daily lives. How? Simple example: the way their roads and their like the road infrastructure is kind of set up, you would know that from a green light to a red light, 2 signals down the line, there is exact like mapping of, let's say, 15 seconds or 30 seconds. So cars or bikes or any public transport would accordingly follow, and you don't need a manual intervention of a traffic police, correct? But imagine somewhere that system in digital goes wrong, then it is going to be a chaos, right? In a lot of the movies, maybe the sci-fi movies, you would have seen that like somebody had created some sort of a malware, and like all the lights have become green or red and there is a chaos, right? So that is nothing but the digital ecosystem, correct? So while there is a lot of advantages, the opportunity for data privacy and security is also there, because those are the roles which will prevent these hackers or prevent this malware, etc., right? So I think that's one thing. Secondly, even if you look at the power, like, or the water or the transportation, so basically everything to do with infrastructure, you will see like a lot of digitization has happened in the Western countries, which we are picking up. We are kind of going towards that direction, and hence the opportunity in India is more, because we have a long way to go, which means if all of us can make an impact in this sector, in digitization, I think our country is going to benefit. Correct? So that's how there are a lot of differences. At the same time, like the opportunity, I would say, is much more here as well. Integration, payment integration, like your UPI is one best example. Like how all the banks and the payments are integrated through an UPI.
So students, you should be very happy to know that the courses which you are doing, they are the courses which is in demand. So automatically, not only in demand, it is on from an employability point of view. These are the course certifications which is going to earn you a job.
Sir, what about the informal sector? How are we going to create awareness to make them aware to cope up with these technologies?
Sorry, I was not able to understand. Can you please repeat? I think the voice was breaking.
Sir, I'm Shabazz from Harvard. Yeah. My question is, how are we going to create awareness for the informal sector in our country to cope up with these technologies?
How are we going to create awareness? Okay. So we create awareness through communicating in the right channels and platforms. That's what marketing is all about, right? how can we create different content formats? I think content formats are also very important. You also need to understand, like, users today, what kind of content format will they typically engage with. Maybe you create an informative video, maybe you create, like, an infographic, maybe you create an interactive, like, banners, right? Maybe you create a blog and you promote this on the different relevant, like, channels and platforms, right? Your social media channels are important, your Google channels are important. Then you also have channels where you have, like, Q&A. For example, Quora is a channel where, like, you typically ask questions and there is some expert, like, who kind of delivers the answers, right? So you will have several such, like, different, like, channels where you may want to kind of pose a question and share the information. So it's all about, like, how you utilize the different channels of communication and the content which you will want to kind of talk about. That's how you typically create the awareness.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
So this is Shiram Kamal from District Protection. So I have a doubt, sir. So you explained about the Indian and spotted difference. So I am asking, sir, we have good numbers in case of population, and we also have many talents. But in case of application of these latest technologies, like in small scale industries or some rural areas, why are we Indians are lagging behind to some extent? Some areas are going much forward, but in some cases, some areas, the technology is still old and they're still using the traditional ways. So why are they not adopting the new latest technologies?
See, I think, it's a combination of many factors. It's not just one factor, right? I think traditionally India, and honestly, I feel this is the beauty of our country, because, like, there are different states and every state has its own strengths and, like, USP, uniqueness about them, right? So traditionally in India, there are people who are early adopters, right, who are late adopters, and we have seen that all throughout, always. Like, and as we also grew up and as you are growing up, we'll see that always, right? There are some regions in India which is, like, much more adopting to technology. For example, like, Bangalore, for example, right, or Karnataka, for that example, is one state which really has adopted technology with both the arms, and they were one of the first, group to kind of do that, right? Similarly, there are some other southern states who have also done that. But if you go very deep, let's say, for example, to a central India or maybe northeast, right, maybe, like, some technology adoption has been much more lesser, because the penetration has not happened, right? The growth of the industries or growth of, like, how the talent over there, right, is very different, correct? But that doesn't mean that they don't have their strengths. Maybe their strengths are something very different which contributes to the beauty of our country, right? So to answer your question, there are multiple factors. It is all about, like, the users getting the right opportunity and the right education. And once they get that, then the most important thing is, like, how typically you would want to apply that education also. There are a lot of, like, places where users may or people may be getting the right education, but they're not applying the technology properly, correct? There are places and villages and and cities where users are getting it and they're applying it properly, right? And of course, see, it's a growth journey at the end of the day. This will never happen, like, in 24 hours, right? If you think of India 20 years back, and if you think of India now, just this 20 years, you will see a lot of growth, right? However, if you compare this 20 years with the Western world, maybe the growth is slow. I understand, because ours is a large country, right? But still, the good and the positive part is there is a growth. That is important. And the next question is, like, how do we take that growth to the next level, right? So hence, all of us, including myself, yourself, and everybody, I think we have a role to play. And our role to play is, like, we really need to ensure that whatever we are learning, we are applying, we are trying to apply, right? And if you remember my first class, that like, see, nothing is a wrong or right. It's all about the intent and it's all about the thought process, right? So whatever we are learning together, if you are able to really apply that, I think that itself will take it to a growth. Like tomorrow, you may kind of, come up with something which probably in your area or in your village or in your city, people will be inspired to look at you and say, you know what, okay, if he has been able to apply an IoT in the field, why can't I do it? Similarly, there are tens and hundreds of people who will do it, and then automatically, like, the entire region becomes enhanced, right? So I think it's a long process. There is no one single answer, to be very honest, but I think, like, we all need to be a part of it. We all need to kind of start contributing, and probably our journey has started now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
So I'm Jax Matthew from Srishti Infotech, Kundapura. So my question is, how do I keep my private data safe? Like till how the rules in India are more safe for us. Like
sorry, your voice is breaking. I can't hear you.
So as an end user, how do I keep my private data safe, like from using for the advertisement and all?
See, if you're an Apple user, it is easy. It's easy. I'm just talking in general, right? It's easy because Apple's features, like, they offer you much more privacy friendly settings, right? You can just kind of deny any advertising or any kind of information coming to you. If you're an Android user, unfortunately, it's still not evolved, but it is going to be evolved very soon, right? Because obviously there's a huge, privacy and data, concerns that's kind of raised. But in general, I would suggest that, if you're using apps, you use only those which is really relevant. Don't download from, any random sites. Do not download 101 apps, right? If you are visiting certain websites, etc., be very careful to accept the cookies, so I think these are all the different ways in which you can maintain your privacy and security on the online space. It is evolving. This space is evolving. There is no one answer to it, but we also as users have certain responsibilities in how we contribute towards that.
Hi, sir.
Yep.
I'm Vajida from SS Systems, Raichur. I wanted to ask, how do companies use web analytics?
Okay, so companies use web analytics across all the different fields of marketing, right? So a few examples we talked about earlier in the day. It uses web analytics to understand who are the visitors coming in. Sorry, rather I would say what kind of visitors are coming in, right? When they come onto the website, what do they do? Do they click on a particular kind of content and then move on to something else? How many pages do they visit? Where do they click and say a sign up for a form, or let's say, for example, a purchase, etc., right? So that's how typically the web analytics identifies the user's behavior and their pattern. So anything and everything that a user would do on a particular web, starting from clicking on some content to moving on to certain tabs or moving on to certain pages or taking up action in terms of signups and forms, etc., web analytics is able to determine all of them. That's the role of web analytics.
And what is the ratio for that, sir?
Sorry, what is the?
What is the ratio for web analytics?
So when you say ratio, you mean?
Ratio means how they will calculate, sir, in
okay.
percentage or.
Got it. So typically web analytics has inbuilt functionalities, right? So they don't calculate in a ratio, but their inbuilt analytics is linked with how they are able to capture the data, right? And then they are able to kind of say, for example, X number of clicks happened, X number of people visited home page and then moved to the next page, right? So these are all, so typically there are different types of web analytics. For example, the Google Analytics has a JavaScript, right? And Adobe Analytics has their own internal tagging, which they kind of use, right? So every web analytics has different tools which is able to capture the user behavior and how that data is kind of coming there. That's how they do it.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
I am Sachin from Srishti Infotech. My question is, how does pre-planning for future growth helpful in marketing? Nowadays, while trends charges are every day.
Can you repeat one more time? I couldn't hear it properly. The voice was breaking.
How does pre-planning for future growth helpful in marketing?
Pre-planning.
Yes.
Okay.
Nowadays, while trends changes every day.
Okay. See, trends may change every day, but it doesn't change so drastically that, like, the basic doesn't remain the same, right? For example, like, you may want to plan for a digital marketing course or digital marketing role. What are the few things you need to know? You need to understand data. You need to understand the technical knowledge probably of how an analytics works, right? You may need to understand how typically a certain channel works, etc. So these basics will remain the same. So that's how you can plan what you want to do. But in order to keep up with the changes, just because you know something doesn't mean that is final. You need to upgrade yourself always, right? During the work, or there's something called as the on-job training, right? Like, you start with something, with some technology, and then, like, you kind of move on by understanding and enhancing your skills. So skill enhancement, a constant skill enhancement is important. And only then over the time, like, you become a professional where you are able to fit yourself into multiple roles, right? That's how you do it. So pre-planning is helpful because you know what you would want to get into. But once you have gotten into, how do you keep yourself, like, relevant is important. How do you keep constantly upgrading your skills is important.
Thank you, sir.
And I see a couple of questions in the chat. I think Megha is asking, hello, sir, how can we involve ourselves to build all these real-time applications? I think it's a great question. So, Megha, what you will need to do is, one, you need to be thoroughly understanding, the technologies and learning the technical side of things. And then you will have to kind of work on projects the organization you're kind of working on, or freelancing or whatever that is, where you get to work on some business. So, for example, if you remember my initial slide where I was talking about Accenture's business goals, one of the goals were to kind of build a platform on automation which was really robust, right? So if you get a chance to work on projects like this real time, that's where you'll be able to apply your skills. The second question is by Shabazz, which talks about how are you going to promote these technologies like metaverse, virtual reality, and AI, etc., in rural sector, where a lot of them are underprivileged? Yes, that's a challenge right now for sure, right? And we need to figure this out as to how we do it. I think it'll take some time where probably the people are warming up to it. But I think also a lot of the different programs, like for example Digital India programs, or even companies like Facebook, which actually manufactures the headsets, right, of the virtual reality, they may want to kind of do a showcase or a road show in a particular village or in a rural, right? That might help. Then I think there's a strong requirement for the telecom industry to really provide internet services, and these are different programs that the private sector has to kind of partner with the government sector in order to deliver that, right? So I think there's a lot of these aspects that are kind of important. But what is more important is one, understanding that there is something like a virtual reality, there is something like the world beyond and beyond extending into digital. I think as long as people are understanding it, and then slowly over the time people are starting to adopt it, I think would be helpful. So there is one more question which says from Kavita Computers, which says, sir, what exactly role of the cloud in digital marketing? I think the role of cloud is everywhere, right? So what does a cloud typically mean? A cloud means you are storing everything in a digital way. So storing data, storing your information, storing the different platforms, for example, all the social media platforms, etc., that you engage with, they're all in a cloud. Tomorrow, if there's a shut off, then this entire thing kind of goes down, right? So hence, what you are marketing in digital, everything is almost in a cloud, be it the platforms, be it the tools, or be it the data that you're analyzing. I think everything is stored in cloud. So cloud and digital obviously goes hand in hand. Yeah. So I think these are good questions. Thank you so much. And we are almost in the time. So, so sir, do you want to kind of, add on anything or to the closing comments? Sorry, sir.
I think Soumyajit, you have already beautifully explained them. What I want is now that the assessment, the assignment which you have given till the second week of August, let them do this integrated marketing for their respective franchisee. Evaluate these assignment and let us know in what fashion we have to give them marks, because I have told them very clearly that they will be, marked on simulation and role plays. So role play we have not touched yet. We don't expect them to do role play in the month of July. But this I will take it as a simulation work, which you have given, that is prepared. So simulation, evaluation, Shweta. Simulation, evaluation, he has already given one concept. They have to prepare that and present it. Franchise, for the franchisee, they will prepare a marketing principle. So for a franchisee, so the franchisees will send it to you and we will evaluate them. So I think that is done. Franchisees, are you okay? Franchisees, are you okay with this simulation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So see that all your students, the second line and the third line, help the students to do this simulation, and you try to get the integrated marketing communication model for your development of your marketing, vetted by none other than the best expert, which is Soumyajit Dey. You are lucky that he is going to vet it, because I think no, forget the IITs and IIMs. He is 15 days in Europe, 15 days in India. So please understand, he has that international exposure. So he's going to vet it beautifully. Count yourself lucky that Soumyajit is going to vet that integrated communication for you. And once he vets it, please use it for your marketing. So let the students prepare. Instead of giving lakhs and lakhs of rupees outside, let the student prepare that and give it to the franchisee. Are you with me, franchisees? Students, are you there with me?
Yes,
so
sir.
please do a good job. You are being evaluated. You are being evaluated on this. This is your first evaluation. Yeah. Yash, Sokat Ali, you want to say something? Director of Operations would also like to say something. Yeah.
Sir, can I take your 1 minute, sir?
Sure, yes.
So, I think my franchisee friends as well as my student friends, I think sir has given the major 2 projects or major 2 concepts actually. We didn't know about those 2 concepts. Please, whatever he has given you the structures, what are the assignments, what are the projects to be completed in those 2 projects. It's a new concept for us actually, sir. And just take care of that project and do the project assignment and complete it at the earliest and send it to the Kionic. And sir will going to vet you all those things and he'll guide you the upgradation of the project. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
This meeting is being recorded. The recording has